And so what you saw in the 80s was a shift of whites actually, because integration had tricked blacks so badly into doing whatever it took to assimilate into a white world, into a white society. You saw black people actually no longer demanding that respect, demanding that positive reflection of the black community, and you saw them basically compromising at every single turn. And so as you had the rap situation where conscious rap, or so-called conscious rap, was telling you about the things that were happening in the black community from the perspective of what the white society was doing to the black community. And when the 80s hit and there became that shift, you saw white males paying younger black males, less educated black males, to change that direction. And it was deliberate. They needed that direction changed because, remember, blacks saw white as the man, as the oppressor, as the person that was, you had to be aware of and you couldn't trust. And so at the time they were, the black man was your brother man, your sister, your queen, your, different things. So there was definitely a pride going on there. And so that had to be stopped in order to make sure that the black power movement or the black conscious movement was, squashed, or at least attempted to squash it. And so you had these white males started buying and starting these white record labels and white record companies. And they started targeting. Now, many of these white record companies were in charge of and put out everything from soft rock music with white people, hard rock music with white people, punk rock music with white people. Their focus was white people. And so they did this shift in the 80s to how to control this black conscious movement, this black entity that was keeping black people's self-esteem up. And so, of course, they started gearing some of their resources toward buying some of the black children that were rebellious or in gangs and different things. And so what would happen is that you have a black male who is trying to get into the music industry. And so, it's a long path. You have to pay your dues, as they say. And you get out there and you do some shows and you trying to put your records out and you sell them out the back of your trunk and whatever. And they were still trying to tell what's going on in the community, but they were telling it from a perspective of, this is some stuff that it started shifting toward, this is what black people are doing to me, and not so much what white people are doing to me, even though they couldn't see the white people behind the black people that were doing these things. And so because a lot of black parents and grandparents stopped telling black children the things that white people were doing and in control of, even when it comes to controlling other black people, all black children now were seeing was black faces doing the things that white faces used to do. And so there's this anger that started building up, and the civil rights people and the different organizations had an opportunity at that time to really sit down and start addressing the anger that was building up in these children that white men were now paying these children for and using. But unfortunately, by that time, the civil rights organizations and the different black organizations were so bought and paid for by whites that they were not even allowed, not even able to focus on correcting this problem that they saw growing on a daily basis. They saw it. And so they were literally had their hands tied behind their back by all the funding that they had taken from the same people, the same companies, the same whites that were now causing this shift. And so you had these children that you had the HIV situation where crack babies were being born at a ridiculous pace. And so black organizations, black civil rights organizations, didn't keep up with those crack babies. And we've had shows on that before. They did not keep up with these crack babies, while whites were actually adopting and taking in these crack babies. Black folks never asked, well, why? Why are they doing that? What's the plan here? Why would they do that on the scale that it was happening? And so you had a shift also of whites trying to take children out of black homes. You had them feeding the de facto child slave trade like it was going out of style. And they were even promoting in every major black city this thing of tell on your neighbors, tell on your siblings, tell on your family members. If they're not treating their children right, tell on them, call DFAC. And so people started being programmed to do that. And so you had, one sister calling DFAC on another sister. You had a black male calling DFAC on his baby's mother. You had neighbors calling DFAC on their neighbors who had children. You had churches calling DFAC on young mothers in the church, and so, or young mothers in the neighborhood, or whatever. And so DFAC were starting to make a huge amount of federal money, tax money, from the trading of the increase in trading of Negro children. And so a lot of these children in DFAC were actually becoming victims of, child molestation, which was making more anger, more mental fractioning and whatnot. And so, once again, black organizations and black civil rights organizations, black politicians, they saw this happening, but they were taking that money from white people. So white people basically controlled what these organizations and politicians could focus on. And so it was a thing where now these children are in the system, and they're in for a year and 5 years and then 10 years, and the next thing you know, they're being kicked out of the system at 18, not having a proper education, not having, proper social understanding. It was just having anger, having, to fight the whole time that they were in there. So you have this angry adult. You have this angry young person. And so many of them are running away from the DFAC system at 15 and 16 years old. And so now they have to figure out what to do. Well, of course, a child is going to need role models, whether that's they find positive ones or negative ones. They're going to find them. And so their role models for making money became the drug dealers. The drug dealers had the cars. They had the money. They had the women. They had all these things that looked so popular. And so the children started emulating these drug dealers, working for these drug dealers to make that fast money. And, of course, once you got that money, you now have to figure out what to do with it. So, they're buying clothes. What clothes do they buy? Well, they're looking at entertainers to see what's hot, what's in. And so You got entertainers that were coming up like Michael Jackson. So you had a lot of people, a lot of black males that were trying to be like Michael Jackson.